In Yu-Gi-Oh, cards let you do things. Often these are things that help you win, like destroying your opponent's back row, or flooding your field with monsters, or locking important mechanics out of the game behind an impenetrable floodgate. Normal monsters let you do one thing: play a monster. They have no effect, and that makes them pretty bad. But they do have flavor text, and this little spice of lore sometimes says otherwise. Some normal monsters are holding back godlike powers. The monsters start off this list at, well, number 11 is the familiar face. You probably clicked this video when you saw its thumbnail. Who isn't familiar with the awesome wrath of the Blue Eyes White Dragon? This beast was the ace monster of Seto Kaiba in the original Duel Monsters anime. And, well, whatever, you know what a Blue Eyes is. I know what a Blue Eyes is. We've all seen a Blue Eyes, but let's take another look at its description. This legendary dragon is a powerful engine of destruction. Virtually invincible. Very few have faced this awesome creature and lived to tell the tale. That's setting the bar pretty high, right? Not only is Blue Eyes the strongest normal monster in the terms of raw stats at 3000 attack and 2500 defense, but its flavor text confirms that it is virtually invincible and eliminates almost all that fall within the path of its fangs. And adding to the Blue Eyes White Dragon's resume, this is the only monster on this list to see considerable competitive play in the TCG on account of the oodles of support Konami loves to lavish this dragon with. However, it's the weakest, most powerful creature on this list. Every entry in this list to come next would not only live to tell the tale of clashing with the Blue Eyes, but would decimate the legendary dragon, like its cost down at the Buster Blader store, and you're not going to get a main phase 2. The first creature to top the Blue Eyes White Dragon at number 10 is the confusingly named Fiend Reflection number 1, which is not actually a fiend, but a level 4 wind attribute winged beast with a disappointing stat line of 1300 attack and 1400 defense. Pay no attention to the 1700 attack deficit against the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Let's look at the description. This monster can draw its enemies into a mirror world that renders them helpless. From villages to knights to entire planets, dragons are famous destroyers, but also ill-equipped to escape a nefarious mirror world where they've been rendered helpless. That's actually absurdly powerful. There's a long legacy of powerful mirror-related cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! And even an entire archetype exploring the liminal world of mirrors and dreams, but Fiend Reflection number 1 is often tragically overlooked. At least, Fiend Reflection number 1 has stronger stats than its companion card, Fiend Reflection number 2, another puzzling level 4 winged beast with a light attribute and 200 less attack. A bird beast that summons reinforcements with a hand mirror. Let Fiend Reflection number 1 prove that it's way stronger to trap things in a mirror than to pull them out, for whatever that's worth. Interestingly, this card was never released in the TCG, even though Fiend Reflection number 2 debuted in the Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon set, which was one of the first packs. You can acquire it as a normal from Legacy packs in Master Duel though, which is nice. Eclipsing Fiend Reflection number 1 and the Blue Eyes White Dragon to grace us with her presence at number 9 spot is Maiden of the Moonlight, a level 4 light fairy with an okayish 1500 attack and 1300 defense. She's a sorcerer blessed by lunar light with powers far beyond mortal comprehension, according to her flavor text. And if Kaiba's favorite dragon steps to her, it'll need a mostly dead zombie retrain like its weaker Red Eye's cousin. And no, blue-eyed silver zombie doesn't count. What's critical to the analysis here is Blue Eye's obvious strength. Sure, it's virtually invincible, but that's not actually invincible. And we already said it, Blue Eyes is obvious. Mortals can comprehend its awesome wrath. You know what's far beyond mortal comprehension? Exactly. The lunar powers of Maiden of the Moonlight. And that's not the only space where Maiden of the Moonlight distinguishes herself. She's also shockingly expensive with a current TCG market price of over $20, because her English edition was only ever available in 2002's Tournament Pack 2. So maybe her attack isn't quite as high as her description would imply, but she makes up for that with dollar signs. The forecast for this list is looking a little cloudy, but don't worry, that's not a cause for concern. Just a segue into our number 8 spot, Ray and Temperature. This level 3 light fairy with only 1000 attack and defense is very literally a force of nature. Its flavor text confirms the sun and the north wind join hands to deliver a devastating combination of heat and gale force winds. Since the dawn of recorded history, humanity has nurtured a deep respect and fear for the power of the sun and storms. Many deities are derived from such phenomenon, and we're not talking about the winged dragon of Ra. We mean the original model. But enough about the true sun god. Ray and Temperature is the sun. That's actually real. The north wind, also real. The implications of this card are in fact staggering. Just as the sorcerers of old called monster spirits from other dimensions to square off in shadow games, perhaps sorcerers from other dimensions pulled the sun and north wind from our world into theirs to do their bidding. Just the sun would be more powerful than a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Just the north wind. This is both, and there's still only number 8 on our list. So buckle up, or don't, we've already moved beyond the sun in any map now. dredging the deep corners of duel monster lore where light doesn't reach. Now, if that sounds vague and conceptual, bad news. The vague space halfway between worlds, between is and isn't, is precisely where we're headed. It moves through lands of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas, crossing over into number 7, Mystery Hand. If you believe it's text, which for the purpose of this list we do, the Mystery Hand twists reality and reaches between dimensions to attack its enemies. Unfortunately, this translates into a monumentally disappointing 500 attack and defense on paper, or cardstock rather. We do have to talk about the Mystery Hand because the description goes crazy. Not even halfway down the list and we're shattering reality. It's only level 2 Dark Fiend, but Right Arm of the Forbidden One is only level 1, and has even less attack and defense. Does this mean that the body of the Mystery Hand fully assembled is more powerful than Exodia? It's a very good question, and one that technically cannot be answered, because for some reason, Konami somehow forgot to print a full Mystery Hand archetype. What we can say without a doubt is that this enigmatic appendage alone is more than enough to ruin the normal monster with the most attack points, the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is just a dragon. Actually, this monster is so mysterious that it doesn't exist in the TCG. Over 2 decades ago, it was obtainable exclusively as a common in the OCG Starter Box 1. Like fellow Blue Eyes White Dragon Destroyer, Fiend Reflection number 1, an official copy of Mystery Hand remains elusive to TCG players. However, like the Mystery Hand, if one reaches into a different dimension, in this case, the virtual one, you might find the power you're looking for. That's a very convoluted way of explaining that the Mystery Hand, despite its absence from the TCG, has an impressive resume of video game appearances, including in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 2 Dark Duel Stories, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Duel Stories, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 4 Battle of Great Duelists, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 5 Expert 1, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duels of the Roses, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 6 Expert 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards, Yu-Gi-Oh! Worldwide Edition Stairway to the Destined Duel, Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship 2004, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and finally, most interestingly and confusing of all, Yu-Gi-Oh! BAM, a web game commissioned by Konami and played mostly on Facebook. This game featured familiar monsters with different texts, stats, and effects that one might recognize. Unfortunately, even this game failed to comprehend the multiverse twisting implications of the Mystery Hand's lore strength. Its Yu-Gi-Oh! BAM edition has 1 less level, 100 less attack, and only 400 life, plus an aptly categorized sorrow effect causing the Mystery Hand's player to take damage upon its destruction. Still, it's interesting seeing the dimension-spanning capabilities of the Mystery Hand in action. What's more powerful than a traveler between worlds? Well, the remaining monsters on this list for one, but specifically, it's time to talk about a limited series of trans-dimensional normal monsters of immense strength, the denizens of Anotherverse. Anotherverse Dragon and Anotherverse Gluttonia constitute a significant power jump in this list to further creep Kaiba's favorite dragon out of existence. Gluttonia is a level 8 Dark Fiend with 2500 defense and 2000 defense, and a name that's a nod to gluttony, the deadly sin of greed and excess. By its charmingly alliterative card text, Anotherverse Gluttonia is a massive malevolent monstrosity, devourer of diverse dimensions, who molds multiple domains where only the mightiest dare dwell. It has many dimensions and gluttonously hungers for more, but it's not the only Anotherverse monster. Anotherverse Dragon is a level 8 light dragon that also has 2500 attack and 2000 defense. This secretive dragon has conquered many dimensions, but can only be seen by the Champion of Time. If its flavor text is to be believed, the Champion of Time bit is probably a fun nod to the card's exclusive prize card status, as only YCS champions of the specific year would originally receive the card. An argument could be made in either direction for one Anotherverse strength over another, but that's not a particularly interesting track to take. And anyway, both of them are weaker than the monsters to come, so it makes sense to group them together at number 6. Another reason to keep the Anotherverse together is the fact that both of these TCG originals never saw widespread release. That's because they were distributed as Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series prize cards, with Dragon running as a prize for 2022, and Gluttonia Goblin Spotlighted 2023 prize. The decision to use normal monsters as prize cards marks a departure from YCS events previous, where powerful cards like Dark Lord Superbia, Minerva the Exalted Lightsworn, and even number 89 Diabolus the Mind Hacker, which is currently banned in the TCG. This decision was probably to avoid the issue of locking potentially meta-defining cards in a limited release, usable only by those few lucky enough to win, or by paying the exorbitant cost of procuring such a rare card. Unfortunately, we can't all be Seto Kaiba, but actually it kinda sucks to be him too, because its Ace Blue Eye stands exactly no chance of winning in its own world or any of the others conquered/devoured by Anotherverse duo. While the attack difference between Blue Eyes White Dragon and Anotherverse is only 500 points, which is closer than some of the entries on this list, the lore power differential is extreme. If the mystery hand can ruin a Blue Eyes by reaching between worlds, how much more powerful are the beings who oversee them? But that's still not enough to beat the next entry on this list. Hidodenchok is a level 2 water attribute aqua monster with 600 attack and 700 defense, and the following flavor text. A rapid starfish that spits a lethal acid that can melt almost anything. Very impressive. We'll ignore the fact that rabies affects exclusively mammals, and starfish are invertebrates of the Echinoderm phylum, because Hidodenchok is not the number 5 entry on this list. It was almost strong enough, but melting almost anything doesn't cut it, especially when you consider the vastly superior Acid Crawler, which is the number 5 spot on this list. Sorry Hidodenchok, but you've been outperformed by a scary caterpillar with slightly better stats. Anyway, Acid Crawler is a level 3 earth insect with a whopping 900 attack and 700 defense. Not anything to write home about, but despite its less than stellar attack, anyone foolish enough to fight the Acid Crawler will never ride home again, will never go home again, will be a puddle of mud. Acid Crawler's official lore describes it as a giant caterpillar that secretes an acid mist that melts anything. Not almost anything, anything. Are you a thing? Meltable. You exist? Meltable. Anotherverse Gluttonia might have devoured several worlds, but none that contain the Acid Crawler, because Gluttonia is a thing. A grand thing, cosmic in scale, but a thing and therefore meltable. You know what else melts? Silly dragons that think their lightning breath is enough to keep them safe from a sinister creepy crawly that was never released in the TCG, but can be obtained in Master Duel and Duel Links. We can only assume that the Acid Crawler was never printed to shield the larger world from a creature that cannot be stopped, cannot be contained, has less than 1000 attack, but according to its flavor text is stronger than anything. Well, almost anything. The monsters we've yet to cover in this list enjoy extenuating circumstances that give them an edge over the creature that can melt anything. Forget the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Except don't, because we're going to keep dunking on it for 4 more slots plus an honorable mention. Longtime fans of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime will be familiar with the Millennium items. These 7 magical artifacts of great and terrible power were forged when the pharaoh Atem's father massacred an entire village, using his subjects' stolen souls as anima to form tools of mystical power for him, his servants, and his descendants. This is the inciting event for the original Duel Monsters anime, because in time the soul of Atem would come to occupy the dissembled Millennium Puzzle, which would pass through ancient histories until it fell into the hands of Yugi Muto. Interestingly, the creation of Millennium items led to both the destruction of the world and a stay of its execution, as the mad Atlantean sorcerer Darts decided to wait another 5,000 years to enact his apocalyptic plan of summoning the Great Leviathan via the Seal of Orichalcos, because the Thief King Bakura had already called in the evil god Zork in an epic clash with the time-lost forces of Pharaoh Atem. None of that is what this list is about though, and is only relevant to adequately communicate the unparalleled power of the number 4 on this list, Sengenjin. This level 8 Earth Beast Warrior monster boasts a whopping 2750 attack and 2500 defense. In addition to carrying multiple Millennium items, which is actually insane and seriously what it says on the card, Sengenjin is an unstoppable savage that carries Millennium items. The implications of this card are actually staggering, because although the card text very clearly communicates its ownership of a plural quantity of Millennium items, none are recognizable in the image depicted on the card. Instead, several golden weapons are strapped to its massive back, including a double-edged battle axe, a spike club, and an unknown third item with a golden handle. So, this either means we have a wave of unknown, suggestively violent Millennium items, or the actual items carried by Sengenjin are hidden from view. Given his gigantic size, it's likely that his green pouch could carry almost any number of items. But anyway, can any combination of Millennium items defeat the Blue Eyes White Dragon? The answer is yes, and Sengenjin could probably stomp the Acid Crawler as well. Like the Mystery Hand, the Millennium items confer into their hosts the ability to reach dimensions, and what's more, even establish their own pocket dimension for the express purpose of settling a high-stakes wager, where the laws of reality are the rules of the game, the Shadow Game. With Sengenjin's arsenal of multiple, and again, that's actually crazy, Millennium items, it is able to edit the code on which the world runs. The Acid Crawler can melt anything, but what is anything in a Shadow Game? All the shadows in the altered landscape of the world won't solidify until after wills have clashed and a victor emerged. While the Millennium items are alluded to in their imagery of a few cards, Sengenjin is the only card to name them, which makes an interesting piece of Yu-Gi-Oh card lore. Originally released in the TCG in 2004 as part of the World Championship Series, Sengenjin would see wider release in 2008's Premium Pack 2, and if you have a secret rare, you can probably fetch a cool $200 or more for it. So we've established that the Blue Eyes White Dragon is really struggling to keep up with the canon strength of some of the other fellow normal monsters, and that wielding Millennium item makes you incredibly overpowered. So where do we go from here for the final 3 spots on this list, supposedly stronger than a bearer of not 1, but 2 or even more Millennium items? Back. We have to go back to the beginning of the universe, to the beginning of everything. Twin-headed Fire Dragon is number 3 in this list, and so much more powerful than its 6 levels, 2200 attack, and 1700 defense that it's absurd. But right, going back to the beginning, the Big Bang is a scientific theory to describe how the universe expanded from a starting condition of high density and temperature. That's fancy science speak paraphrase from Wikipedia, but what's important is the density, the temperature, and the bang. Let's look at the flavor text for the twin-headed Fire Dragon. 2 dragons fused as one from the effects of the Big Bang. The implications of this sentence are quite astounding. 2 dragons with existence predating the expanded universe were fused at the deepest level by the boom that spawned everything. The shape of twin-headed Fire Dragon is even reminiscent of an atom, perhaps referencing the molecular nature of its rebirth. That's the density, and its fire attribute? Well, that's the heat. Not only has this dragon always existed, it has existed before always as a concept. This does make it more powerful than acid, and so elemental to the fabric of all being that it's questionable what powers a Millennium item or items could hold over it. We'll give the edge to the fire dragons that are fused so densely they're a normal monster instead of a fusion. So what else is more powerful than the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and more importantly, more powerful than the dragon from the beginning of time? We travel through history, organizing, rallying, and unifying to the present to stand in solitary forever, with the number 2 spot on this list, United Resistance. This level 3 wind attribute Thunder Monster can't be melted by Acid Crawler, can't be banished by a Millennium item, and is stronger than every iteration of the past because it builds the future. Its text, the people that gather to swear to fight their oppressors. A revolution is coming. They possess a strength greater than the might of armies magnified 1,000-fold, and the coming revolution will be huge. A huge revolution is a normal trap card that destroys every card on your opponent's side of the field and sends every card in their hand to the graveyard. This uniquely nigh game-winning card can only be activated when you have 3 specific normal monsters on your field. Oppressed People, People Running About, and United Resistance. Together, these 3 cards tell a story. First, with Oppressed People. They are oppressed, but believe they will have their freedom someday. Then, People Running About. Although they always suffer in silence, they swear an oath to inevitably revolt. The series ends with the United Resistance and the Huge Revolution. Their chronological nature is alluded to further with their levels, with Oppressed People being level 1, People Running About being level 2, and finally level 3 United Resistance. But why are they stronger than the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and stronger than Sengenjin, and stronger than the Twin-Headed Fire Dragon? Because you cannot destroy a unified people with 3,000 attack points. Because you can't send the collective will of a populace into the Shadow Realm, only turn vanquished revolutionaries into heroes and legends. Because the drive to organize is the future. It is a change to push past the future into the past. After all, what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? Just like the equip spell, it is the union that makes us strong. United we stand against the overwhelming forces that would oppress us, and no card mentioned yet can hope to stand against a union attack. Before we move on to number 1 spot on this list, the normal monster that most decisively dominates the Blue Eyes White Dragon, we have to give an honorable mention to everyone's favorite level 3 Earth Dino, Mammoth Graveyard. This monster, which despite its typing is not a dinosaur, or a rock like a fossil card, or a zombie like other fossil cards, did checkmate the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in Yugi's duel against Seto Kaiba on the ramparts of the Castle Pegasus. In a controversial move that we're still waiting on Konami's judges to comment on, Yami Yugi used spells Living Arrow and Polymerization in succession to fuse his Mammoth Graveyard with the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, causing it to weaken and decay, eventually enough to be defeated by another normal monster, Yugi's Celtic Guardian. Only Kaiba's quick and strategic thinking prevented Yugi's finishing blow, a feat Seto Kaiba accomplishes by threatening to throw his body from the tower and dash himself lifeless on the rocks below. So technically, Mammoth Graveyard didn't actually clinch the dub against the ultimate Blue Eyes, but it still warrants an honorary position on this list for the hijinks alone. And at number 1 on this list, the normal monster that according to lore beats the Blue Eyes White Dragon the hardest and is therefore more powerful than any other normal monster, up to and including the unquenchable and intangible spirit of revolution, is Doma, the Angel of Silence. It's a level 5 Dark Fairy with 1600 attack and 1400 defense, and a 1-sentence card description of 8 words. This fairy rules over the end of existence. It doesn't matter, nothing does. No one ever wins against Doma, because Doma is the end and Doma is entropy. If Twin-Headed Fire Dragon is the avatar of the universe's first moments, and United Resistance is the indomitable restlessness of the present, then Doma is after all that. All things end, and Doma is the last thing. With the end of Doma comes the closing of the universe's books. All stories will be complete and nothing further can be written when there's no pages. The blue eyes white dragon is a destructive force, but destruction Doma has seen. Everything has been deconstructed and taken down. Curtains. The clearing of the universal stage. What comes after the grand show of life, of being, is silence, and Doma is its angel. Alright, and that's the list. If you know of any other normal monsters that could probably beat the blue eyes white dragon going by their flavor text, or if you have ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.